And we are good. Hello and welcome to the Global Star Party. I've given up deciding to try and say hello, good morning, good night, because time zones are just irrelevant now. It is just the time where we start showing live views of space. This is our weekly show where we discuss what we're looking at, if we have some live views, images taken during the week, and also going to be some current events as well. Well, apparently there's been a bit of a thing recently to do with some dwarf planet on the edge of the solar system. I don't know, I've been living under a rock for the past week and not heard anything. So thankfully we've got Sophia here tonight to, well, explain, go into a bit of detail and fanatically talk about this dwarf planet that's pretty freaking awesome. So welcome to the show. This is something you can join in and be part of the whole thing. We have the Q&A app running, so you can click somewhere on the bottom of the screen if you're watching this on the event page or on YouTube, and you can ask questions, join in, say hello, and even make requests, because Paul, once again, is going to be saving us with live views. And even though this is the Western nighttime edition, yeah, Paul is on the other side of the planet and the one guy providing us with live views. But hopefully, some Americans somewhere may be able to join us with some live views. Russell did say if he did have clear weather, he would try and get something for us. So, crossing fingers. Joining me tonight, as ever, is my co-host, Dylan.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Dylan, from Byron Bay, the amateur astronomer. A lot of friends have been asking me, when do you stop calling yourself amateur? And I don't know, it's not like you get a certificate or something, but I just keep taking photos, and hope to share a couple with you today.
I'm just going to jump in there quickly and say, you become a professional astronomer when you discover the asteroid that's going to destroy us all, and not until then. We also have Paul, who is bringing us live views. Good morning, afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Hello, and where are you coming from today?
I'm coming from the South Island of New Zealand.
He's lying. He's really coming from America. It's nighttime. Honest, this is the Western nighttime edition. Yeah, Paul once again is defying clouds. So thank you once again, Paul, for joining us. And we also have Sophia, who, well, I believe knows a little something about Pluto.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, and welcome once again. This is the second appearance you made on this crazy show.
It is. Thank you for having me again.
Hey, no, it's good to have you. And Sophia, tonight we'll be discussing possibly a little bit about Pluto.
Oh, I certainly will. Just in case any of you don't know, I'm from Toronto, so anybody from Toronto will know that today we had a really bad heat wave, so it's not pleasant weather-wise, but other than that, we got a lot of things going on with space, and that's pretty much worldwide, space-wide. So
well, I was going to say, luckily for you, it may be a heat wave there, but I think Pluto is a little bit cooler. But before, still a little bit.
Definitely.
Right then, I am going to jump straight into some live views, just in case clouds come and ruin the show today. So, although he does say the clouds have disappeared, but Paul, you've got something going on here. What have we got?
Yeah, we've got two moons. Oh no, I mean Venus and the moon. Venus way over here, the moon just here.
You see, I'm thanking Paul for highlighting that because earlier I didn't actually spot Venus. Didn't spot a planet. Oops. So you could tell this is live because there's that little kind of hazy wibbly wobbliness that kind of shows to you that we've still got a nice breathable atmosphere above our heads, but it's a pain in the neck when you're trying to image things.
Was there meant to be an occultation today, Paul?
For some lucky people in the north of Australia, I think, got to see it.
I see. Yeah. So that was a little while, like a couple of hours ago, and it just would have skimmed the edge, really, and just got close for you, I suppose.
Didn't get too close for me.
Right. So, I mean, one thing our more observant viewers will notice is that not only does the moon show this lovely phase here, you also notice that Venus is showing a very similar phase. And that's because, well, you may have gathered the sun's off in one direction. But, I mean, Venus shows phases and was one of the first clues that we go round the sun and it's not the sun going round us. It was one of those things that when people started observing things, they realized, hang on out, yeah, it's not the sun going round us after all. Controversial at the time, but definitely what happens these days. Well, we hope so. I mean, you know, they have just sent a probe out to Pluto, so I'm guessing they know pretty much the layout of the solar system now, give or take a few million objects or so they haven't quite found. So, Sophia, something happened this week.
Yeah, something big happened this week. As I'm pretty sure everyone already knows, Tuesday at 7:50 in my time, a.m., but let's just say Tuesday, July 14th. Time zones are, you know, just, yeah.
Yeah, I've given up on time zones.
So after a 9-year journey through, well, 9.5 years through space, New Horizons finally arrived at the Pluto system to its closest approach. It was amazing. I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure at least maybe that you were on Twitter, or if not on Twitter at that point, maybe a little bit later you saw the buzz that just went, people just went mad, right?
It was 2 o'clock here and I deliberately stayed up to watch them go, we have a signal lock, and yes. Then I could happily sleep comfortably that night.
Oh, okay, so you're talking about New Horizons' phone call home?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. So that, myself and my friend Atifa Sayed at York University, we held an event called Plutopalooza, which is being held like everywhere. We held it with the Astronomy Club at York University and the York University Observatory, and we actually had a lot of people come in. A lot. Like, it was pretty well around 100 people from all over Toronto. And this is like, it's a club event, so it was a pretty big deal. They all came in, you know, we had a couple of profs there talking about, you know, the science and stuff behind things, and we watched the live stream from NASA, all waiting for that one signal that, you know, that New Horizons would just call in and say everything went well, and it happened, and everybody just went nuts. It was really cool. Like, for us, it was at, I think, exactly 8:52 p.m.
It's one of those things. I mean, you've sent this probe for such an incredible journey. I've been watching documentary after documentary about it. I mean, a lot of these guys have literally, they've started their careers when the project was just being, you know, built, devised, etc. And now, you know, they're like multiple years on, and they're still on the project. And to have that moment where it phones back must be a great relief.
Yes.
And also, I mean, they weren't even sure. I mean, there was this risk that they were going to hit debris on the way through. I mean, they weren't sure what was in close proximity to Pluto, if there was anything small that they could have run into. So at those speeds, it's basically like being hit by bullets. So it's a great moment of relief.
Oh, definitely. So that was actually one of the reasons why it was such a big deal to get the signal at all, right? Because they were going into what you would call, you know, a danger zone, or like a hazard zone, right, where you don't know, anything can happen, and having a piece of debris hit New Horizons would be just like you said, it would be disastrous. So, and it didn't. Everything went well.
And as Dylan is showing here, and Pluto has this beautiful heart feature. This shot was gotten before the flyby, and I mean, look at that. I mean, that's such an incredible photo. I mean, that's and it's got a little heart. Although I believe it's got a proper name now. I think they named it after the discoverer of Pluto.
Tombo Regio, yes.
Yes. And what a feature. Now, can you tell us a little bit about how this image came to be? I mean, is this a combination of two different cameras here, or is this? I mean, what was gone into this one?
Yep. So the high resolution imaging is actually black and white, and that would have been taken by the Lori. The long, I think it's the long. Goodness. I think long Reconnaissance. You know what? Let me just.
You see, I like to throw out those awkward questions.
No. That's it's good. See, the next one is really easy because it's just a name.
I've got it, by the way. It's sorry, I have to beat you to it now. It's the Long Range Reconnaissance Imager.
Long Range Reconnaissance Imager. That's why I was like, Long Reconnaissance? That doesn't sound right. Yeah. It's like this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's the one that images in high detail. It has high resolution imaging, and then the color that you see added to it is actually from the Ralph instrument. So then they combine the two, and you have this beautiful heart on Pluto.
It is lovely. I've seen lots of the GIFs put out there, and there's some really quite cute ones actually for a frozen ice pool at the edge of our solar system. It's a very cute planet when you put eyes on it.
Oh gosh, that one I know. It's almost heartbreaking. I know which one you're talking about. It's yeah. Oh.
I'm going to do a little impression quickly. There you go. That was my impression of that GIF.
Yeah, you got to do this too.
Oh yeah, I've got to do the.
Yeah.
So obviously now that they're getting the data in, it's going to be very slow because of the distances involved and obviously the amount of data that was captured during the flyby. Obviously a few segments have come down, and I mean, what kind of interesting and unexpected discoveries have they made with regards to Pluto?
Okay. Well, thus far, the images that we've received, it's good to, or it would be important to note, in case people don't know, are highly compressed, so that the transmitting it comes through easier. Because at the distance that New Horizon is at the moment, you get like about one kilobit per second transmission, which is really small, right? So, in order to get them as quickly as we have, they had to compress them heavily. So you do lose a bit of detail in. Well, quite a bit in doing so, but yet we still have so much awesome stuff to show, or at least they have awesome stuff to show. A couple of the recent images that NASA had shown us on during their briefing this Friday. This Friday, yes, yeah. Where one was a sort of close-up of the Tombo Regio, where you see this crazy like ice plain. Right, with there's like troughs in it, and a bunch of like sort of, you see in certain areas you see some dark regions within these troughs, and in others you see some mountainous stuff coming out of it, and they don't know what it is yet. And then when they zoomed in a little further, and then you could see all these sort of streaks on them. If you can just show.
Yeah, I shall load up that one. Then I shall have to click on me because technology. Right then, hopefully you can now see some streaks. I'm clicking on myself. It's taking its time though.
Yeah, no. I can see it up here. So yeah. So when you look at the streaks there, it appears that they were formed by wind. They don't know yet, though. They could be plumes. It's basically speculation at this point because they just don't have enough data to be able to tell. And now if we go back to the ice plane.
I should go back to the ice plane. Going back to the ice plane. Hello, ice plane.
So that's really interesting. In fact, what during the briefing, Jeff Moore, which is basically the leader of the New Horizons geology imaging team, he basically called it not easy to explain terrain, which makes just a total sense, right? Because you see this huge expanse that's completely void of cratering, and then you see all these troughs in it, and some of the troughs have some dark areas which apparently may be formed by some I think hydrocarbons that were formed by the irradiation of methane on it. But then you see the other areas, which are I believe the one that the image that you're showing is the annotated one, is it? Yes. Okay. Now that one, when you look at the little sort of, I don't know if they're mountains or some sort of formations that sort of are raised to the rest of the image, there's just, you can't really explain where that came from. Like, you can, the strange shapes that you see, the irregular shapes, could be formed by, like, the contraction of ice, for example. It just contracts, and then, you get this cracking right around it.
I mean,
Right?
I was going to say, I mean, to me, I mean, I'm not a geologist, I'm not a naturalist, but to me that reminds me of ice on top of a lake that has kind of, is thinner in places, has cracked, has moved around, and has pushed around bits. So those hills that it's annotated, it almost looks like areas that's been pushed up. But again, I'm no expert in this kind of thing. I mean, this is the wonderful thing, of course, that Pluto is. This is a genuine moment of discovery. I mean, back in the day when you could get on a ship and head in one direction and find new lands, this is, to me, a very similar kind of experience. They sent off this ship across the night sky and, found this incredible new land in great detail. I mean, obviously we've known about it being there for ages, but, you might as well have put a signpost going, "There'll be dragons," because, I mean, this is how little we knew about it. I could stare at these images for hours. I'm sure anyone else can who's been following this whole Pluto thing.
Oh, absolutely. And it's precisely what you say. It's just it's humanity's first ever look at this distant world that we had, and none of us had any idea that it would look like what it does. Like the image that you've just shown is like a plain sort of, a huge expanse of ice, and then the other ones previously are like, you just see crazy mountains all over the place, right? And these are all in the Tombow Regio. I think, no, the mountains are slightly below it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and but it's crazy how diverse the terrain on Pluto is.
I mean, actually, Dylan, there was a picture of Sharon, further up. There we go, that one. I mean, the crater, the canyon, should I say, on the right-hand edge there is. I mean, that is an impressive feature. Yeah, just where your cursor is. Will we get any more images of Sharon, or will that be the highest resolution we get of that one? Was the focus mostly at Pluto, or did they also try to get this one as well in high res? Okay,
well, I think again with this, just as is the case with Pluto as well, it's again a highly compressed image. So when we get, actually, I believe I'm not sure if you've seen the other one, because there is a pretty let's say a pretty high resolution image taken of Sharon that kind of zooms in onto, there it is right there. And look at that, right? You look at this image and the terrain on Sharon, and you see all this cratering and stuff, and then there's this one area that has that sort of, that weird, what they call a mountain on a moat, and no idea how that formed. And then you look at the difference between Sharon and Pluto, and it's quite striking, actually, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be so fascinating. Obviously, I think they said the data is going to take about 16 months to come down, something like that.
It's really fascinating as well that Pluto needs to be unraveled in a sense, because it has this eccentric orbit and has this moon that's so large compared to it going around its barycenter, and its moon's active and it's active, and it's kind of not, doesn't make a lot of sense, because there's not a lot of energy out there for the planet resurfacing and stuff like that. So there is either an inherent energy, or maybe these big patches that we see both on Charon and on Pluto are evidence of a big impact or a big collision sometime back, millions and billions of years ago, that has created this weird orbit for Pluto. But it's one of those things, we're getting a lot of these tastes of data as it comes back, drip fed every day, but it's going to take years and years to analyze it all.
That's precisely correct, right? Because you get the data, but then they're they have to put it through analyses and figure out, just pick it apart and look into it to find to analyze it and figure out what exactly that data is telling us. And then, you just mentioned like the geological activity, and this is something that's striking on Pluto, right? And when you look at the Tombaugh ratio, that is just, you see no cratering whatsoever. So there must be some sort of geological activity to have erased it, right? It is a shocker, because it's exactly what you said. You don't have the energy out there, because around, closer into the, with other systems around planets, like for example, you look at Europa. Europa gets its energy from Jupiter's gravitational pull, right? So for that, and then plus you have the sort of tidal flexing that occurs between it when when the other Galilean moons all align, and so you have something to give the energy there for geological activity to occur. But with Pluto, you don't see that, right? It doesn't have a giant planet to orbit. It doesn't have a gas giant around it. Aside from the fact that no, actually, yeah, that doesn't even count. Like it's really just it's almost they have to redefine now what they've thought before in terms of, about geological activity. And I guess this will give us sort of insight into what or how Kuiper Belt objects are. This is our first look at a Kuiper Belt object, and the Kuiper Belt is basically the most distant region in the solar system. So
I was going to say, I'm just started screen sharing this simulated flyover that they put together.
This was gorgeous.
And you've got, these incredible, impressive mountains, which are not rock, they're ice, which is, to start with, incredible. I think something saying like 3,000 meters high. And when you consider that's made out of ice, and it's a minus 230 degree centigrade planet, it'd be a chilly walk up one of those, but nonetheless.
I think it's interesting as well, like different, what we consider a liquid here, water, is simply a solid, just because of where it is. So there, we talk about it not being a rock, but it is there, it's a rock. H2O is a rock on Pluto. Just the same way certain metals and rocks here are liquids on Mercury. Just depends where you are.
That's right.
I was going to say, on Titan, I believe it rains methane, liquid methane. So, there's some wonderfully alien worlds out there. Now, I am going to quickly say, obviously, the whole rather heartfelt thing where it's like, Pluto should be a planet. It's, what did they do this to it, kind of thing. I was watching I think it was a US show. I don't know the show particularly, but they had Neil deGrasse Tyson on it.
Yeah.
And I really, really liked what he said in regards to this whole thing. He said, well, hang on a minute then. Pluto is 5 times smaller than the Earth. Okay, so it's a
Oh, that
small.
was Colbert. I saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah. But he then said, surely, to then, from the perspective of Jupiter and Saturn, Neptune and Uranus, then really the Earth's a dwarf planet because the ratio is so much bigger. I mean, the Jupiter is 11 times bigger than the Earth. So actually, the difference between the gas giants in Earth is much bigger. So you might as well just say, oh, they're all dwarf planets, and just keep the gas giants as proper planets. But I was going to say, I think the one thing that they did discover is that Pluto is actually just fractionally, I think 20 to 30 kilometers bigger than they expected, which means it's definitely bigger than Eris, which means it is the king of the Kuiper Belt. So it is, as I think you could say, it is a dwarf amongst midgets. So it's really the king of the whole system out there right now.
Oh, it is. Yes, it definitely is.
And it has a little heart on it, so come on, we love it. Dwarf planet or otherwise, it's still out there, and we've just visited.
Absolutely.
We can tick it off. Now I'm going to quickly jump out of Pluto because as amazing it is, Paul does still have a live view, and for the atmospheric seeing he's suffering, that is still a view of Venus, officially still a major planet. But Earth size, but very, 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 very hostile. Its thick atmosphere pretty much reflects everything it can back at us, so you can't see much detail. It's very low down to start with, generally speaking. So it sits in the thick soupiness of our atmosphere. But you wouldn't want to visit anyhow. The probes that have been sent there have been crushed to oblivion. And if you have a UV filter, though, and much better seeing than this, you can see clouds on Venus. But nice view there, Paul. How much of a bar load have you got stuck in there right now?
2.5.
2.5. So what does that bring your focal length up to? Give or take a bit.
If 14 and a bit.
Nice. So, I mean, that's what time of day is it there? Sorry for you.
It's 2:30 in the afternoon.
2:30 in the afternoon, and this guy can find planets. Now, actually, I've noticed in the Q&A there's a couple of things popped up. Michael suggests that if you get a Pagek, then you are a professional astronomer. I guess that makes sense. I'm still sticking to asteroid discovery.
That counts me out anyway.
You photographed a space station in front of the moon. That's at least 50% professional. And also Helen Reed, long-term viewer. Hello, Helen. Did note that Eris is more massive than Pluto. Now there was something about Pluto being less dense than they expected. Go on, Sophia. You can field that one.
Okay, so apparently, like the density of Pluto is less than that of Eris, but it was recently found. They had like definitively. I think. Let me check because I posted this on Facebook.
Oh, not the evil Facebooks. No.
I have accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. So.
Just because they might think.
I believe it was. I'm not. It's going to be difficult to find it because there's been a lot of posts since. However.
Have you been wall spamming?
You could. I suppose you can call it that. But it's Pluto, so it's okay.
Oh, all right.
No longer spam when it has to do with Pluto.
It's completely understandable.
But if memory serves me correctly, it was some 3,260 kilometers. If memory serves me correctly, something like that. Whereas Eris has a diameter of. I feel like it's 3,220 something or 30 something plus or minus 12 kilometers, but that still places it well below Pluto's. So like Pluto is definitely the largest that we know of thus far. Kuiper Belt object.
This is the wonderful thing about exploring the very edge of our solar system. There is still a lot we don't know, so it's always pretty darn exciting.
Yes.
Now, I see. I've stirred up the hornet's nest here because another thing has popped up in the Q&A app from Michael. It says we should be adding, not subtracting planets. I think we'll save this for a debate another time, possibly.
Yeah, I understand. I guess people will passionately continue to argue this, but I mean, in my opinion, I received the shock when it was first reclassified in 2006, and this was after New Horizons was sent. But later on, I mean, it just made sense to me. And I'm okay with it being a dwarf planet because it's still cool, and it makes sense just because, again, I think I'm gonna reiterate what I said last time, but you know, at some point in Pluto's orbit, it actually gets closer in to the sun than Neptune does. So it's a little bit strange because you look at everything else, like every other planet, and they don't do that. Like they stay relatively at the same position, but like, I mean, of course, you know, they all have slightly elliptical orbits, so you know, at some point the Earth is closer to the sun than it is at other points, but it doesn't cross another planet. So and that's generally what we see everywhere else aside from Pluto. Pluto doesn't do that. It's different, right? And but again, whatever you want to classify it as, is fine as far as I'm concerned. But one thing that we can all agree on is that Pluto is insanely cool, shocking, in fact, and quite a show stealer, at least in.
And really, it happens in all disciplines. Certainly in biology, where we seek to classify everything by a very strict taxonomy and define what is a species. There's always outliers to that. Eventually, you discover a platypus, and you're like, "Whoa, you know, what's this?" and Pluto is that platypus. Really, it sits between two different extremes. So, and it is what it is. Whatever we call it, it still is what it is.
Agreed.
I was going to say this is an interesting one that just put Q&A is alive tonight. I'm loving this. Wouldn't most of Pluto melt away if it came closer in the solar system?
Okay. Well, it would depend on how close into the solar system it would come, because like you look at, I mean, you look at, for example, Europa. It's a planet of ice, or excuse me, it's a moon of ice, and that one's pretty. It's a lot closer than is Pluto. Now, that being said, bringing it closer in would definitely allow the ices to sublimate, because again, you don't have just water ice there. It's not water ice. It's ice of, you know, nitrogen and methane and that kind of stuff. So it would definitely sublimate, and I think that it would just add to the atmosphere. That makes
I was going to say I think. I'm just going crazy here because, you know, this is my job to go crazy. But I think Pluto, if you gave it a comet kind of trajectory, would make one heck of a bright comet. I think I'm going to put it that way.
okay.
Now, Paul.
Now, if you're talking about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just.
It's all right.
Go, you know what? Yeah. If you're talking about bringing it in like as close as comets come into the sun, that could be a different story.
I was gonna say,
because Pluto already has an ion tail.
Yes, that is why Philae is a little bit in love with Pluto. I was going to say though, I mean, let's be honest with you. You bring anything closer into the sun, eventually you're going to start melting. You bring the Earth next to the sun, and trust me, we're not going to be around for very long.
We won't be around for very long. That's right. We'd all fry away. Goodbye, oceans.
And you know, I'm just going to segue beautifully here because guess what? Paul's bringing the sun live. Oh, Paul, you just keep doing it. Now, this I can't tell actually. Is this Cal K or is this hydrogen alpha?
Yes, this is calcium K, son.
Nice. Now, calcium K is towards the purpley end of the spectrum, heading towards ultraviolet, and it is.
It's really quiet today.
I don't know. That middle bit that looks pretty cool to me. Still pretty quiet though, you know.
Calcium K seems to bring out the sort of the granulated features in the sun.
I was going to say, it's one of the reasons I want a Cal K telescope, but I'm just going to have to rely on Paul having permanently clear skies to fill my need. So, yeah, Paul, thanks for my addiction. That is a lovely view. And obviously, you can tell this is live once again, simply because there's that little bit of atmospheric wobble. Paul has an observatory, so he's not really going to suffer too much from the winds or gentle breeze, but that wobble is primarily just our atmosphere sloshing around, being a pain as it is. Now, if you aren't familiar with Paul's work, he takes some pretty epic photos of the sun, and it's these kind of views that just make me love the sun, because it's such a dynamic thing to look at. Every day it's different. In fact, every hour it's different, to be honest with you. And if you've got enough magnification, well, every second it's different. But yeah, you need to be in space to kind of get that zoom without atmospheric problems. Talking of which, what's the focal length on this one? I'm assuming there's no Barlow involved here.
No, there's just a little 80mm refractor. I think it's f6.
And it is something I'm going to have to, quote-unquote, borrow when I come that end of the world. Borrow. Just so
I'd like to put Paul on the spot now and show off his Trifid Nebula, which he finished off last week, which you can see on my screen now.
I love this nebula, Paul. You wonderful man.
What's the? Give us a bit of info on this one, Paul.
Yeah, that was taken with a 132mm refractor over a couple of nights. Don't quite recall how long it was. I have to look that up.
80 minutes, apparently.
And that is beautiful.
80 minutes on the 120 HA. Yeah.
I was going to say, you can see the hydrogen alpha areas and this lovely red cloudiness around the edges of the Trifid Nebula. And that is just... I'm sorry, to viewers who are new or don't know me particularly well, but this is one of my favourite nebulas. I have observed this once low on my horizon, and I loved it the moment I saw it, because, you know, it's one of those few nebulas I could see in light pollution. Not brilliantly, not like this, by any shot of the imagination, but it's, yeah, I mean, it's got everything. It's got emission, it's got reflection, it's got dusty clouds, it's got hydrogen alpha floating around the edges, and it's got lots of colourful stars in the view. So yeah, I love this nebula. So if you really, really, really want to, you know, make me overly enthusiastic and come on the show and bring me live views of this nebula, I will love you. Just saying. I
may as well show where it is in context. This is one that I've taken a couple of nights ago, and you can see how close it is to the Lagoon Nebula. Now, if you're wondering why I've got two of them side by side like this, it's because this is a 3D stereogram, or a stereo pair. So if you're one of those lucky people in the population who can cross your eyes, get up to the screen now, quite level, and cross your eyes until you have one overlapped image in the middle. And you should be able to see this nebula in 3D. And it actually works really well. This is the first time I've done it.
It does work.
Yeah.
I did it. It looks really cool.
I try, and then I just start feeling queasy. But I will give it a go when I'm not deprived of sleep. Actually, talking of sleep and what have you, I would like to say a quick hello to Liam, who has joined us in Q&A, who is in Wales, and it's well, it's the same time as me, 3:37 in the morning. So hello, Liam. I'm glad you're enjoying the show, and yeah, thanks for sticking up so late to join us. Now, I am going to take the whole images thing, and I'm going to talk about, believe it or not, me, the Brit, the clouds, and the bad weather, and the wind, actually got to do.
The great thing about hosting your own show is you get to show off your own stuff so much.
Well, you say so much, but let's be honest with you, how much decent weather I actually had to do this. So I am going to share, and then well, I'll let you guys actually talk about what we're looking at. I'm just going to smile because I'm sharing something I actually took.
Alright, so this is the Dumbbell Nebula, which is something that I'm not too familiar with, and to be honest, I couldn't even tell you what its natural colours are meant to be, but I assume these aren't its natural colours because we've been hearing so much about Chris's new narrowband setup.
Narrowband? No.
Which allows you to cut through the street light pollution, cut through the moon pollution, and just be able to get these nice long exposures in hydrogen or oxygen or sulfur, and put them together on the RGB channels to create your own palettes, or use the Hubble palette and draw out the colours that way. But you'll have to give me some specifics now, Chris.
Well, I knew I'd have to waffle on again at some point. Right, the left-hand image is a bicolor, well, by data. I used hydrogen alpha, which is the kind of reddish that you can see, and then I used oxygen 3, which I mapped to blue. But this is actually close to its natural colors. So this kind of reddish hue, if I skip over this one here, which I'll zoom in a little bit. So the reds are your hydrogen alpha, the blues are oxygen 3, and then anything in between is a natural blend of both. And then the other image I took was using all 3 data sets, so hydrogen alpha, oxygen 3, and sulfur 2, but I mapped them to the Hubble palette, where hydrogen alpha is mapped to green, oxygen 3 was to blue, and then sulfur 2 data was in red. But there's not much, well, I didn't get much data, to be honest. The exposures on this were only 3 minutes long, because I was shooting mostly through clouds. I would have thick cloud bank, which would obliterate my guiding, and then I get some hazy cloud that I could guide through and shoot. So I stuck to fairly short exposures of 3 minutes, just to see if I could get something. This was first light using these filters. So for me, when the first image came on the screen, there were boyish kind of yells in the back garden, which probably upset my neighbors a little bit. But in fact, if I switch over to this image and do the zooming, so this is so the camera is grayscale, and then you stick filters in front of it in order to select which wavelength you want the camera to pick up and then image. So this one is the hydrogen alpha data set, and you can see this kind of almost like a painted cloud. To me, it's probably because I was slightly out of focus, but it looks like a kind of a painted cloud. And then next one down, next data set. You can see oxygen 3, which is where all that particular molecule, well, atom, etc., sits in the nebula. So you're actually getting kind of the structure. You can actually see where the various gases are. But this, again, it looks very different. In fact, the one thing I did notice on the top left-hand side of the nebula is this very sharp, dark streak, which I would love to find out more about. And then, last but not least, was the sulfur 2 data. And as you can see, not much in terms of sulfur inside the nebula, or at least not in my data set. And then those images are blended together to give you the final overall result. And I still don't have any answers for this one technically, though I haven't actually caught up. And I think someone did comment. I think Mike may have commented. But for some reason, I could see more stars using the sulfur 2 data. Yet my exposure lengths at the same time, and to me that seems odd, because like Paul does and I do, we both image the sun in hydrogen alpha because that's what the star is mostly made out of, so not sure why. So that's my little waffling, but yes, I finally got to do some imaging, and I can't wait to do some more. There's going to be some clear skies coming up in the next few days, so I'm thinking maybe the Ring Nebula, or maybe, I don't know, there's so much to select. I even got my first view of the Veil Nebula, which from light pollution is pretty much impossible normally, and then these filters are like, wow. I got very excited because first of all I was actually able to get my scope to find 52 Cygni without much tweaking, which is a small miracle for my scope and its guiding. And then yeah, I got images, and so that's, yeah, my face for the entire imaging session was like this.
It's like that, isn't it? Yeah. Especially with narrowband, it feels a bit like cheating. You suddenly got this superpower of being able to cut through the light and just have super sharp images. It's great.
I was going to say, both me and my housemate work at the same bar, and it was my evening off and his shift on, and he came back in, and even he knows I'm a massive nerd when it comes to this whole thing, and I will spend stupid amounts of time outdoors staring at the sky. But even he came in and was like, "Whoa, what the heck is that?" So when I explained it's the whole exploding star supernova thing, yeah, he was pretty impressed. I waffled on for ages, especially, and then I tried to explain it was 1,360 light years away and explaining what a light year was, and yeah, it was too early in the morning to really make it very clear, but wonderful object. If you do get chance, folks, with your telescope, it is a nice bright object. It's pretty easy to find, and it's impressive, and even with mildly light polluted skies, you do get, unlike most nebulas which are just straight up grey, you do get a little hint of colour. So
that's actually true. I can contest to that because I can attest to that because many of you may know that I actually also volunteer at the observatory on campus, and Toronto's light pollution. Toronto's light pollution is horrible. It's insane. But that's one nebula that's really nice to look at. That as well as the ring. The ring is great too.
Yeah,
really small, but it's nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things because I think it's so small that its brightness is so focused. It's actually one of those things you immediately spot. You can't mistake it for anything else. It's like you see it and it's like, yeah, you found it. You know it straight away. It's one of the first. I mean, I have to admit, because of light pollution, much like any amateur astronomer starting out, you pick the easy targets. So for me, the moon, that was the easiest, obviously. Then finding a planet next, and then I think it was the Orion Nebula, and then you kind of work your way down to smaller and smaller and fainter nebulas. It takes practice. It's not one of those things you can just look and go, oh, there it is. It does take a thing, and especially with light pollution. Light pollution dims out pretty much everything. Even great globular or globular clusters just do not have the sparkle and kind of surprise that they should do under darker skies. Although I will be trying narrowband out on a few globulars just to see what happens and what kind of starlight I can pick up. And talking about clusters, I'm getting good at this segue stuff, even if I do say so myself. Dylan, that's not a globular, but it is a pretty bunch of stars.
Just running through the Flickr here, and we have a submission from Emmanuel Conciel of M33. Lovely big galaxy there, and you can see the little pink splotches of nebula going on within those.
You can see
so thank you.
In other galaxies.
There's Pluto's ice that we were discussing before. Here's one from Paul, just a sharper version of that image this morning that we were getting live just as the show started. So you can see those two crescents quite clearly in the daytime. So it's,
looks like
nice.
Tatooine, or shot of Tatooine sky. I like it.
Really pretty.
And this is something that we're being treated to here in the Southern Hemisphere. Sorry, guys. We've got a nice bright comet. And last night it was right below the new first phase of the moon. And this image is not taken with a telescope. This is me just with my normal DSLR camera running off 5-second exposures. I've got slight elongation in the stars, but I wanted to get the tails. So 5-second exposures and 35 of them stacked. So you can, people often forget, you can do stacking with normal DSLR cameras. It's not something that you're restricted to telescopes for. When you go out and do this sort of stellar nightscape work with a normal camera, run off as many shots as you can, especially if the field doesn't change so much, and then stack them all later, because all that noise disappears, and I was able to draw out this nice long comet tail detail. In fact, just close up in here, you can almost see the tail breaking into two in this bit. It's actually a three-tailed comet, Comet Pan-STARRS. The dust is that way, and the ion tail is that way. The dust is being blown off by the sun, and the ion tail is the movement, or that might be round the other way. But you can see that this one's slightly brown, and this one's the nice bright white green. So yeah, nice, beautiful comet for the southern hemisphere. It's still visible. If you want to go and do this tonight, just wait for the sun to go down. It does have to go down quite a bit to get dark enough to see. Take some long exposures, and yeah, it's a beautiful target.
So I'm a big fan of comets. I think I actually photographed Pan-STARRS myself when it was Northern Hemisphere time. Again, DLSR, pointed at the sky. In fact, to be honest with you, because of light pollution again, it was one of those things like, I think that's a comet, I think that's a comet. I then put it on the internet and asked a whole load of people, like, yeah, you got a comet. I was like, yes. Of course, the comet is hurtle around the sun, which has created those beautiful tails, and now we're looking at the sun in hydrogen alpha. And some lovely filaments going on there, actually. And a philiprom. I'm going to call it a philiprom. I don't know if that's the actual proper name, but it looks like on the right-hand side we've got a filament that's lifting off the edge as well. Ah, yeah, look at that. He increases the exposure and suddenly the edges are revealed. It's either that or the clouds moved out of the way. Nice. It is a fairly quiet sun, actually. And what interests me, actually, at this point is that the calcium K image suggested there was some kind of sunspot in the middle there, but I'm seeing some lightening, but I'm not seeing any sunspots. Unless it's the video feed. Maybe there's something in there. Sorry, I'm going to stare and just, you know.
It's interesting with the solar cycle. There's a few infographics that you can get going around that show how active the sun is during those solar cycles. And back in 2006, if you'd have bought yourself a new solar telescope, you would have been rather disappointed with 260 days where absolutely nothing happened on the sun. Where compared to now, we're pretty much in the middle of a solar cycle, and there's something happening. There's really every single day has had a sunspot for a long time. So we're in an active period, although it's rather dull today, but it's still more active than it was in 2006, that's for sure.
How can you say our giant, deathly, fiery plasma ball in the sky is a little dull? I mean, come on, it's still beautiful. I mean, you know, I was going to say, again, it's one of those things, the Trifid Nebula and the sun. I will waffle on about the sun for hours because, I mean, it is pretty darn epic. I mean, it's, you know, you can fit, is it 110, 111 Earths from edge to edge to give you a sense of scale here. I mean, some of those features you're seeing here are, well, I'd say almost all the features that are strongly showing here are bigger than our entire planet. So, I mean, that gives you kind of a, you can fit 11 Jupiters across the sun as well. So it's a huge, huge object, and Paul is once again working miracles with the clouds. I mean, I don't think he's had a show yet, but he's been clouded out. Paul, how many goats did you have to sacrifice to do this?
I just told them to come and visit you.
Ah, yeah, cheers, buddy. Yeah. I think I did you the favour. I bought the astronomy equipment and lured all the clouds over here for you. Well, that's the way it feels like right now, anyhow. In fact, I've just seen some RGB filters that I really want to add to the wheel, and I think, you know, when the weather forecast that night went from clear skies to pretty much just rain for the night, and it really did lash it down. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to buy anything more for a little while. But you know, it's, yeah, I could stare at that for ages. I really could. It's beautiful. I mean, you know, we've had Venus, we've had the moon, we've had the sun, and we've also had some fantastic Pluto Eris. In fact, it's a really good time to be into space at the moment. There is a lot going on, you know. And look at it this way, if you're thinking about getting kids involved in this kind of stuff, there are some benefits. Not only will they have a very open mind to a much larger universe out there, they'll also never have any money for drugs and alcohol. So it's a wise move. If you're considering investing in the telescope for the kids, I recommend it. And if you are a kid, well, yeah, sorry, no party time for you. But at least you're getting some great views of stuff in space.
Now, we should also give a shout out to all our American and Canadian viewers. We are after more astronomers from your end of the world. We are fairly active on the Australian-New Zealand side of things, and we've got a couple of people, Chris included, ready to go in the UK whenever the clouds decide to part. But not so much luck in America and Canada. So if you're over that side of the world, you've got a telescope and you want to help us just stream some live views and come and have a little informal chat as we do here, you'd be most welcome. So just hit us up and we'll let you know the details.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things. I've said it on a few shows now, but this is very much, we love space. All of us right now, we are obsessed in one form or another with stuff in space, whether it be Pluto, the sun, pretty much anything. Actually, you talk to us about space and we love it. So we love sharing this stuff. We want to get this out. We want to be able to share these wonderful views that we can bring in. So if you can share your view and you have the same kind of passion and want to share it out as well, then please join us. We are always looking for more, and which is why we also have the Flickr group, which Dylan has been referencing tonight. That's where any photos that you've taken, recently or otherwise, although we do tend to preference recent-ish ones. But we'll click on Dylan now actually just to show that off. This is our Flickr page. You can find it simply by typing Global Star Party into Flickr. Please feel free to add photos to some wonderful photos. It's just great to have a look at them, to be honest with you. If you want to just have a browse at some epic photos that the guys take, I mean, look at that. That's Orion, and that's really pretty, and one of my favorite nebulas too. Heck, I love them all, really. I'm a bit of a bad person like that. I love far too many nebulas. The Flame Nebula, you see. Oh, the flame. So yeah, anyhow, getting distracted. Please feel free to add photos. We will share them out on the show. We will just talk about them. We're not necessarily the most scientific at times. In fact, we tend to name nebulas whatever the heck we want, as in case of Dylan's Flying Spaghetti Monster Nebula, which, to be honest with you, I think is pretty...
He is the most qualified person on this show now.
yeah, right now, Sophia, you are like the most qualified, educated, intellectual person on this show right now. Well, except Paul, but he's too much dark arts has twisted his mind. He's quite quiet these days. But please feel free to add. You can also follow us on Twitter. We are at Global Star Party. We tweet out the pictures that are added to the Flickr group, up-and-coming things, general spacey stuff. Please feel free to check out that. And also, there are the individuals that put this show together. You've got me, the slightly eccentric and very tired British host. It is almost 4 o'clock in the morning, so again, this is the show where every other week that I ramble and waffle on incessantly with bags under my eyes. So yeah. Next week it's great. I'm normally awake and had a few coffees and it's cloudy out there and it's fine. But you can also find me at CKMU on Twitter. That's at CKEMU. You can also find me on Instagram under the same one. I will explain that on one day. And you can find me on Google Plus, where I put my pictures when I don't get clouds. Although I might actually start putting pictures of clouds up just for fun. But you can find me at Chris Kennedy 1 because someone else has stolen the first one. Darn it. You also have my host Dylan, who you can find on the internet.
Yeah, just Google Dylan O'Donnell. I've spent years demolishing my competition in the search engine rankings, so I'm dominating the front page there.
Is that because something about a space station in front of the moon possibly might have helped a little bit there?
Oh, that did give me a little boost in the rankings.
A little bit, right? And the Queen of Pluto, and also just general awesome chat about anything spacey, is Sophia, of course.
Well, you can find me on Facebook, certainly, at my name, Sophia Nasser. I'm on Twitter at PharaohNess, as you can see on my name tag right there. And I'm also on Instagram at the same name, and Google Plus, my name, Sophia Nasser. And yeah.
You can be found on the internet, and if you want
I can be found on the internet, yes.
And if you want an absolute overdose of awesome Pluto news, then definitely someone you should check out, because
Pluto and all astronomy, pretty much, as well as physics, and just cool stuff like animals, because I like those too.
Let's be honest with you, who doesn't like a good pug every now and then? That's right. My spot. Pugs, they're awesome.
Absolutely.
Actually, there should be a constellation named after pugs. I'm going to put that one into the IAU.
Squirrels.
No, squirrels. Yeah.
No, yeah. Well, hey, come on. You got the tail. It's a perfect constellation. That would be awesome.
I am liking this slightly Alice in Wonderland route this show is going down right now. Okay, yeah, actually, folks, please leave comments on the YouTube page, on the event page. What kind of animal constellations would you like to see and why? I would
Vote
be
squirrels.
Curious. Vote squirrels.
Vote squirrels.
Vote pugs. I'm just saying. Hey, Dylan, what animal would you like as a constellation?
Flying spaghetti monsters.
Oh, yeah, we
Oh, come on.
So there's also Paul. Paul, what animal would you like as a constellation?
A kiwi, of course.
Of course. I thought there might already be one with the whole southern hemisphere. You got to name all the cool stuff. Well, Paul is once again bringing us live Venus and Moon, which is pretty freaking awesome. And Paul brings a lot of really awesome stuff to the internet. So where can we find your awesome stuff, Paul?
Plus Paul Stewart NZ on Google Plus and Astro Stew on Twitter.
And we've been pretty light on you today, I think, Paul. We haven't really pushed you to find crazy objects. And I should have really said go and find Jupiter, but I thought I was quite nice to you. I'm hoping you're appreciating the break before next week's show, where it will be the Australian nighttime edition. So I will be suggesting to everyone in the Q&A app, if you want to just make horrific requests to make Paul probably whack his head a few times on that massive counterweight system that he's got in his observatory, feel free. Although he is awesome, so I suppose we should try and keep him alive for a few more shows. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Sophia and Paul for joining us. Thank you, guys. You're awesome. Thank you, Dylan, for once again being my co-conspirator and co-host. Always appreciated, dude.
Chris, for putting together this motley crew and getting this show up and running as usual.
Well, I enjoy it. It's one of those things, and I also like the fact that we get to share out really cool stuff in space. So hey, so come join us next week. We will be doing a show. It will probably be I'm terrible at the whole converting time zones thing, but it'll be roughly about midday UTC, so everyone can convert from that, right? Yeah, no problem. Okay, cool. Next Saturday, come join us for live views of stuff in space in the southern hemisphere, because Paul is obviously going to have no clouds again. No pressure there, Paul. Thank you to all our viewers, and thank you to everyone that has been in the Q&A. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to quickly have a look. I think Liam Edwards has suggested the Lima Constellation. Meerkats? Maybe meerkats. They could be a thing. Imagine then again if you...
Meerkats are cool, yeah.
If you
but
live
squirrels
in
are still squirrels.
Yeah, but then you have to have a constellation next to it called the Nut Constellation or something.
Hey, don't worry about that. We can deal with that. No problems there.
All right, sweet. Right then, well, on that bombshell, folks, with slightly nutty constellations, as I say, please put in the YouTube comments, put in the event page, just any constellations you fancy that are animal-based. I will pick a winner, and then I'll try and match it to some stars. Who knows? We name something. Who needs the International Astronomical Union? I mean, come on. They downgraded Pluto.
It's not a downgrade. It's a reclassification.
Yes. Sorry, I have to do that. I have to play devil's advocate. That's part of the job of being a host. Well,
I also want to say something. Can I say something before we close out?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I mean, even if I say, yeah, can you guess how far away from Pluto New Horizons is now?
I want to say, because you've probably got an app for this, haven't you? I want to say somewhere in the region of 4 to 6 million kilometers.
You actually did really well. Well, I just calculated it, so I hope I'm right. I probably have an error in there, but I just used the fact that it's going at some about 13.8 kilometers per second. So it looks like it's about 5.5 million kilometers away, which is weird, right? Good job.
Incredible. Yeah, right. Hey, that's
so weird.
That was some guesstimation. I think it's only because a few days ago I heard it was like 2.5, 3 million kilometers, so I kind of just went roughly.
Well, that was a great guess. That was a great guess.
Well, thank you for that slightly mind-breaking problem at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go and get myself a cup of coffee, and oh, it's getting light outside too. Yay! Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you guys. Thank you, Paul, for bringing the live. Thank you, Sophia, for bringing the Pluto and all things spacey awesomeness. I hope you can join us again. That'd be brilliant.
Definitely.
And, thank you, Dylan, for sporting such a great beanie tonight. Really loving it. I want one. Right then, guys. Good night, and thank you for joining us.